Good evening. Divided government it is after Republican candidates swept to victory last night across the country, taking historic margins in Congress, defeating a lot of big-name Democrats, setting up an even more interesting national election in 2016. Republicans needed to flip 6 seats to take control of the Senate. So far, they have 7. That number could grow further as some races are undecided. Their margin of leadership in the House is history-making. It was red over blue in a big way last night. Nothing tells the story more vividly than this. The nation as viewed by congressional districts, showing patches of blue, slivers of blue on a canvas of red. An angry electorate voting locally, not nationally, and in lesser numbers, but sending a clear message nonetheless. We begin our coverage and analysis tonight with our national correspondent, Peter Alexander, in Washington. Peter, good evening.
Brian, good evening to you. Capitol Hill will be a very different place when the new Congress is seated just several months from now. For Republicans, it's a youth invasion of sorts. The average age of the Senate Republican freshman class is 49 years old.
Fresh off their blockbuster night, the new faces of the Republican Guard. Joni Ernst, the self-described Harley-riding, gun-toting, hog-castrating war veteran.
I grew up castrating hogs on an Iowa farm.
Securing the Senate majority for the GOP for the first time in 8 years.
And we are going to make them squeal.
The Republican wave more like a political typhoon, crashing down on Democrats and President Obama.
It was a historic night at every single level. This was all about a direct rejection of the Obama agenda.
The renovation in Congress's ranks a clear reflection of voter frustration and disgust, much of it directed at the Washington establishment. Leading the way, the likes of 37-year-old Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran Arkansas's Tom Cotton, Georgia's multimillionaire businessman David Perdue, and Colorado's Cory Gardner picking off a Democratic seat in a state that Obama won twice.
Tomorrow we go to work to fix a Washington that is out of step, out of touch, and out of time.
Today in Kentucky, Mitch McConnell prepared to add a new title, Senate Majority Leader, signaling a willingness to step away from past confrontations.
We're not going to be shutting down the government or defaulting on the national debt.
One bright spot for the Democrats, New Hampshire's Jeanne Shaheen fending off former Massachusetts Senator Scott Brown. For the GOP, it's not just the Senate. When lawmakers return to Capitol Hill in the new year, House Republicans will have their largest majority since Herbert Hoover was president in the 1920s. Now entering the history books, Utah's Mia Love, the first black Republican woman in Congress. Elise Stefanik, at 30, the youngest woman ever sent to Washington. And South Carolina Republican Tim Scott, the first black senator elected in the South since Reconstruction. The president's most stinging defeat came from his home state of Illinois, where Governor Pat Quinn was swept out of office. This morning, New Jersey's Chris Christie basked in his party's glow.
That's why Republican governors were elected last night, re-elected, and new ones elected, Matt, because governors get things done.
And perhaps the biggest surprise in deep blue Maryland, where even visits from both the president and first lady couldn't keep the state's governor's mansion in Democratic hands.
And the fallout may not be finished for Democrats in Louisiana. Incumbent Mary Landrieu faces an uphill climb to hold on to her seat. The recount is scheduled for next month. Brian, in Alaska, Dan Sullivan looks poised to pick off another Republican seat from the Democrats up there.
Peter Alexander starting us off from Washington.